Hello MPD Nation, I'm the Terrible Shogun and today I'm bringing you a glimpse into a series I started on my channel some weeks ago. This would be my fourth episode in the series I call Should You Buy, which I named because I wanted to review games and give them verdicts not only based on their score, but also on their value for money. So what game is in the firing line today, you ask? Well, I've decided to review Insomniacs Games' cooperative third-person shooter, Fuse. The first IP to be released on the Xbox 360 as well as PlayStation 3. And the second time they have worked with publisher Electronic Arts. The makers of the Resistance, Ratchet Clank and Spyro the Dragon franchises have previously announced it as Overstrike, with a cartoonish Borderlands graphic style because the squad you control is named Overstrike 9. But the game was rebranded a year later as Fuse, probably to put more emphasis on the game's unique weapon archetype. When Fuse works, it's a blast. The combat explodes into clouds of virtual fun as you destroy your enemies with straight out of science fiction instruments of death. The co-op third-person shooter skirmishes have a seductive cadence that keeps you close to your controller. Each trigger squeeze can elicit a squeal of joy from your inner 13-year-old. Fuse has that power, and that's an impressive weapon in its own right. And when you're able to assemble your own A-team of friend-list recruited mercs, Fuse can deliver borderline awesome moments. It can be a very bloody shooter with some pretty bloody graphics. You can literally paint the walls red using dead soldiers and researchers. Fuse's inventive arsenal, which includes a soldier-incinerating mag shield, singularity-inducing warp rifle, crystal-forming shattergun, and fire-chaining arc shot, is clearly developed by the same group of people who were behind the Bullseye, Auger, and Arc Charger from the Resistance series. Combined with standard issue weapons like assault rifles, shotguns, sniper rifles, and pistols, your munitions leave you with plenty of options. Firearms can work together just like the combatants themselves, allowing you to kill with cleverness. Being a co-op shooter, you'll get most out of Fuse with a group of your most trusted digital veterans. Its AI, while serviceable, tends to have trouble with advanced flanking techniques and can also take a time to revive you while you're dying. Playing with a friend or two, or three, will help you survive the campaign's final missions. And human partners are an absolute requirement for the Echelon mode that sends wave after wave of increasingly difficult enemy swarms at your crew. Plus the aforementioned weapon combinations really stand out when fighting alongside flesh and blood compatriots. Fuse throws you right into its fighting, but it does so without giving you much of a setup. The narrative has a need-to-know basis kind of edge to it that left me wondering about whom I was fighting and why. You don't even know how much about your group and your mysterious handler named Oculus. All you do know is that you're playing as mercenaries that are fighting other mercenaries, all because of a mysterious energy source known as Fuse. Unfortunately, I received very few answers to my lingering questions as I travelled the world and outer space. Fuse give you some morsels here and there, just enough to explain why you're going underwater to a hidden base or ambushing a sprawling Indian palace, but the storyline almost falls flat, even with the attempted gotcha moments. Regular weapons are considerably worse than their Fuse counterparts, but usually have high rates of fire and better accuracy. Despite this though, the weapons still seem to be very unbalanced and the enemies can soak up enormous amounts of fire. On easiest difficulty, 3 or 4 enemies can kill you in literally seconds, but your teammates will always try and find a way to revive you, even if that means their cover will be blown as well and they can even get downed. So you can end up having 3 of your teammates running towards you and all getting downed at once. You'll journey through multiple environments while playing Fuse, such as deep ocean labs, labs in the middle of a jungle, mountaintop labs, labs orbiting the earth, and labs miles underground. Yes, that is a lot of labs, and you'll see tons of industrial spaces with metallic crates of all shapes. These areas look like big labs. Fuse has some interesting backdrops though, yet most of the time you'll fight in the same environments, except for an updated view out of the window of a lab. Some of the missions have multiple outdoor sections, forcing you to brave the elements. These sequences help add variety, but they're short and superficial. Barring a couple of significant moments, the vast majority of our playtime will take place inside monotonous metal walls. The game features 4 different modes. They include single player, offline co-op, online co-op, and an online horde mode, where you generally face off a gargantuan amount of enemies in familiar single player locations in attempts to win more credits to spend with the agency. But does any of this sound attracting to gamers? I don't think so. If you want a good offline cooperative shooter, then you can go and play Resistance Games to see Insomniacs True Talent, and Gears of War probably has the best horde mode. So there are plenty of other alternatives, and Fuse has tried to combine them all into one. Fuse does bring some new features to the third-person table though, like its Fuse weapons and co-op action, but they're basically modified in different versions of previous features in other shooting games, like unique weapon types in a not particularly better haze, and cooperative gameplay in various titles such as Army of Two and Gears of War. It's mostly let down by the team AI, and the game's confusing tone. A certain criticism I and many other reviewers have with this game is its change in art style and tone from the previously planned project Overstrike. with its new look being generic and uninspired. I really tried to get into the game, but the contrast between guns that shoot peas at enemies and overpowered few weapons makes the game feel uncomfortably imbalanced. It reminds me of too much of typically terrible shooters like Army of Two and Kano Lynch. My score for Fuse is 6 out of 10, and my answer to this question, should you buy Fuse, is no. But if you have a few friends that are willing to get it, and then it may be worth renting to have a go messing around with its alien technology and gun-toting mayhem. So I hope you enjoyed the special edition of Should You Buy on the MPD Nation. Make sure to like the video if you enjoyed it or if it was helpful in any way, as it helps me continue doing these. Subscribe if you want to see more value for money reviews of the latest games. And look forward to the next installation of Should You Buy on my channel featuring Remember Me, Don't Nod Entertainment's interactive cinema stealth action adventure game, which appears to be a cross between Deus Ex, Human Revolution and the upcoming Watch Dogs.